Hello, good evening, and welcome to Talk New York. I think it is safe to suggest that all over the world, society considers women, or more appropriately, treat women as second-class citizens, no matter how subtle it may be in other parts of the world. However, in most parts of Africa, such treatment is very much part of the culture. Thus, traditional institutions tend to demand substandard treatment for women. It is sad to recognize that most women accept and expect their substandard existence. I have in the studio two experts, one who has chronicled a young woman's quest for intellectual and economic freedom, and a counselor who is also an advice columnist to help analyze and hopefully answer some questions. Thank you for being here. My first guest is Kwasi Bosompem, author, Confession of a Neglected African Daughter. Yes. And Gifty Aseidu, who is also a social worker, certified social worker, and a columnist for a center newspaper. Thank you for being here. First of all, what motivated you to do this book?
Confessions of a Neglected African Daughter, an amazing book. Growing up in Africa, I had a number of classmates, young women, some who were even smarter than the boys, some who could do calculus more than the boys, some who outperformed in our schools. But as I advanced myself through my educational career, and I look back, there were some of my mates that I found, married to, they were fifth wives, third wives, in polygamous institutions, and some even never had any opportunity at all. So something that I really felt that, hey, given that opportunity, these women could have done better than me. So what I did was really look back, and I tried to track one particular young woman who I knew, and I knew what was going through her life. And I said to myself, hey, she is facing the same problem. So I took my time, monitored her activities, put this together, and just wrote this book about her.
So this is a true story then?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Well, it's funny though, what I found about this book, you know, you have made a lot of arguments about women being as smart as men, which our culture does not really recognize that, because as you mentioned in the book, that the expectation of women being something other than mothers is not something that, you know, fathers even look forward to. When you were doing this book, what did you realize, you know, yourself being a man? What did you tell yourself?
It's been a hard way to success. A number of my friends, my mates, a number of guys that I've talked to try to tell me that, hey, you are trying to do something that we shouldn't even touch. And you're trying to, place women to be as equal as men. No, I said, look here, I think the society is changing all over the world. We have moved from an agrarian era into a much more service sector economy, whereby it takes two minds, it takes two households, it takes a lot from each and every person to contribute the little that the person can. But I tell a lot of these guys and myself that we should look at ourselves. Aspects of our culture that are good should be promoted. Those that we find are pulling us back, we should do away with. And these, to me, are some of the examples that one of the hindrances to our lack of development is not giving equal opportunity to women in most cases, giving to let them lead the most productive of their lives for us to tap the capabilities in which they can offer to contribute in nation and society.
So this was more of a personal crusade in a way that you realized something you want to be.
I think so.
What did you think about the book?
I think it was an excellent book. I was really, really impressed when I read the book in terms of having him depict the role that she went through, the struggles of how she had to run away from home, having come out of high school. The parents want her to just get into marriage, and she was determined that that wasn't going to be her lifestyle. And I think it's really great for women to realize that there's more out there for them than just coming out of school, getting married, having children, and just being housewives. I mean, for me, having been raised here and having a father that I have, I was raised, go to school, out of high school, straight to college, and for your master's, to the point where I was even pushed to do a PhD. But because of my own personal decision, I decided not to do it. But I think women and people need to realize that women have more to offer than just being, quote, housewives or being maids or subservient to men.
Well, you're making an interesting point, but I need to ask this question, that in terms of coming out of school, getting married, or women being seen as conduits for producing children, when those of us who are educated, when you reach a certain point and you don't have a husband, there's a conflict there. So is this society better? I mean, adopting the educational path and going there, get yourself educated and taking your time, and then is that the best way? Because at least
that's debatable.
As soon as she came out of school, she had somebody waiting.
I mean, that's debatable. It depends on the person. I think a woman is a person before, you know, they become part of someone. And the person has to make a decision in terms of where she's going, whether to go directly into marriage or to be educated. And the society, in terms of the African society, the culture depicts as such that this is the role that you're supposed to fulfill, and that's what you have to do. Where they don't give the woman a decision. It's like you're forced into it, and that's not right. Okay, because I personally feel that a person should be independent. A woman should feel separate from a man. So if it happens that where the man is not around, she should be able to support herself. And being what I am, my husband has great respect for me because he knows if he's not with me, I can take care of myself. And when I came out of school, I lived alone for 5 years, worked, paid my bills before I got married. And the relationship that my husband and I have, I mean, it's the greatest relationship.
I think you're inspiration to a lot of women out there who want that independence and stuff. But I'm also, you know, I think you see that I'm very busy, but I also sometimes yearn for the day where I meet that rich person. Say, yeah, just stay home, take care of all the dinner and stuff. And you know, and the point I'm also trying to make is that being a housewife is not a bad thing if that's your choice.
It's not a bad thing if that's what your choice, but if you're forced into it, that's a different issue. I mean, if you're educated and you have children, you decide to stay home and rear the kids, that's different. But to be forced into it and not be given the opportunity to do whatever you want to do, I have a problem with that. And I think education is the key issue. Okay, we need to start that, especially with younger children coming up to say, listen, I'm a person, I'm a woman, I'm a person. I don't need a man to feel fulfilled. I don't need a man to do such. I can do that independent of the person that I'm with. And it creates a different, you know, atmosphere in whatever issues or situations that we're in.
I think just to support what she just said, it's much more, it doesn't really negate anything about marriage. But what I talk much more is forced and arranged marriage.
And it's
forced and arranged marriage is something that I feel that it does not actually respect the woman. And secondly, what she just mentioned is opportunity. Any marriage could be very successful if you can actually tap the fullest talents and capabilities of the person you are with. If the opportunities, if she is denied opportunities as such, then there will be something missing in the marriage as such. So this is where my point is. And I've been a lone male crusader in this.
Okay. Surprisingly though, Akosua, who's the character in this, and you know, she went through this period of her going through school and the parents not expecting so much from her, and she was able to run away from this bondage, so to speak, and try to find some freedom for herself. I am very saddened by the fact that she chose the route that she chose. And also, how do you answer this question for me that I think she has a great spirit, because there was no role model for her in terms of anybody who was succeeding, any woman who was succeeding in education, who has used education to any, you know, greater degree. But then that's where her goals were. You know, how was that?
Just to comment on that, I think the 3 main or 4 main objectives of the book, if you could just pick it out, is one, I try to portray from what Akosua went through, that no matter how far that you fall in your life, you can always rise up and become somebody. That is very important. When Akosua ran away from home and was actually living a brother home, prostituting and doing a whole lot of other things, she was able to stand on her foot, say, hey, I'm not going to continue to do this, and chose a route, you know, to educate herself. It's an exemplary life, you know, to someone that age. This is not all that you have to do, that you can always rise up and become somebody, as she did. Secondly, the book does promote gender equity in education, and it stresses the need for parents to support their daughters in their educational quest, based on the premise, if you might agree with me, that women are socially, economically, and biologically vulnerable if not supported to a certain point in their lives before they can just lead the fullest roles that they can.
Well,
if that care
do
is
you
not
agree
there,
with that point, though?
I'm talking about growing up, growing up in the teens. Like I could say, if there's no support or there's a lack of intergenerational discussion at home and a lot of lack of family cohesion as such, and there's a breakdown in trying to formulate her role, it can always create a lot of problems. And that vulnerability is always a question, there's a question mark.
I mean, although Akosua never had a positive role model to lead her to where she wanted to go, she knew that there was more to just being a woman than just having her parents force her into the arranged marriage.
And she knew it at the time she was in high school. She knew it. She saw others.
She had a vision. She had a vision.
That was important.
I grew up in a family which was very close-knit. I'm the youngest of 5. And so everybody looked out for me. And I lived in a very, very small world. I mean that. In a very, very small world.
Meaning there was support
where
for you.
People, you know, those of us who went to boarding school in Ghana, you know that when you come from Lovac, people talk about what they did, and we went to this party and they were there, and I didn't have anything to say. And most people thought I was lying, but I didn't, because I wasn't allowed to do certain things. And to me, that was my life. I accepted it.
Right.
And because I accepted it, it didn't bother me. I didn't yearn to be anything other than. But this person, that's the surprise here is that even though she hasn't seen the other side, she has some inkling that, you know, she had to do more. And what surprises me is that she was not exploited. She seemed to have outsmarted a lot of people. Did you get that feeling?
I did.
That is
very ambitious, very courageous, I mean, she had vision. And in terms of what Akosua was, she was a reader. I mean, although she hadn't traveled, she hadn't met people outside her community that were a positive role model in the society or the community, she knew that there was something beyond what was in her village. And she wanted to go out there and reach it. And I can identify myself with her because, I had the opportunity in terms of coming here when I was younger. But in terms of my family background, I could say I'm one of the most educated within my family, because I knew that I wanted to go beyond what my predecessors had done. And I'm always searching and yearning for more than just what's acceptable. And you have to have it within you, and Akosua had that power. She had that vision, she had that ambition, the drive to go out there, do something beyond what was acceptable. And regardless of what she had to do, she was determined to do that and to go forward and make something of herself. And I was really, really enlightened, and really I felt very good in terms of having read his book and knowing that, hey, there's somebody out there who's done it. And to me, every child should read that. Every girl.
Survived if I had to.
I would.
I wouldn't have survived because, but no, it's a good thing that she had such a spirit and she was so determined to succeed.
She had
but
stamina.
I wouldn't have survived because first of all, I think that what bothered me in the book is the fact that she chose prostitution.
Okay.
And because I felt that
I would say it was temporal.
Okay, well, it was
Right?
temporal,
It was
but I think that when she went initially to Nigeria with this woman that she knew, and she was placed in a home as a babysitter, as a babysitter or whatever she was, and eventually she started sleeping with her husband and was kicked out of the house. I would have expected her to go back to the woman and found something similar to what she was doing. I expect her to find herself, you know, because usually when women run out of their homes and enter into prostitution, they're usually forced into it. Either they meet a guy who will pretend to love them, and eventually they find themselves kicked to the curb and they have to do this. She wasn't in that boat. That's why I was a bit disappointed.
It shows how strong she is.
That she would rather choose prostitution.
And as you said, she had a vision.
I didn't view it as being negative. I viewed it as being positive in the sense that, hey, she knew that she had people dependent on her back home. Although she ran away, her parents didn't know where she was. She knew that she had family that she needed to support. And the only way for her to get the extra money is to do something that she wouldn't have ordinarily have done. But because of the dependency and the relationship that she has and the responsibilities, she did that. And it was done temporarily. It wasn't a lifestyle. I would have not liked her character had she remained in prostitution. But all along she was doing something in terms of saving, thinking about education, trying to go beyond that. And many people have done that.
Yeah. What I try to show in the book is that that aspect of what she did, the prostitution, is frankly, I mean, I felt there should have been a better way out. Which she realized that there's a better way to what she was doing. And it is that part of her life with others who were living in that hotel. You know, that was something that moved me really, very, very much. Is there no other opportunity for these women? It's not that prostitution is all over the world, but the way and manner, it was being done, as I saw it, is something that moved me very well. And why is it that, I mean, of all the other women who were living in this place, Akosia left them. She stood out. She left them, started
it's obvious that she had a go, but
that's the thing.
Prostitution, as we all know, and as the book also depicted, the women are subjected to violence.
That's the thing.
And she was beaten at a certain point, and she was also almost arrested, and she ended up in a hospital where she tried to escape and she fell. That's why I was saying this, that, you know, this is not something that you enter lightly, saying that I'm going to find, you know, get some money and move on to get myself educated, because in a way, as you pointed out, it was very lucrative for her.
I don't condone that behavior in terms of prostituting oneself, but my view of her character in terms of what she did to make money, I mean, it's like the ambition was there, the drive was there, and the only way at that
and she was in a crunch.
So if I could come in here, is there stresses the need for parents to support their daughters and help them shape their future lives, right? This thing could never, it wouldn't have even happened. Akosia wouldn't have gone to do this sort of thing. Had there been a sort of total intergenerational dialogue between the parents, had the parents accepted and talked to her that, hey, or that Akosia doesn't want to marry this person, Akosia doesn't want to be forced into this marriage, that we shouldn't arrange this marriage for Akosia, and let us help her plan her educational goals and others, this prostitution thing wouldn't have happened.
Right.
But because of the lack of that intergenerational dialogue and the parents not being able to support and help with the child, their daughter, to mold her future, that's where some of our young girls take upon themselves to undertake risky life adventures to achieve their goals. And there are a lot of them.
I think the key thing is education. We are blaming the parents. The parents are not to be blamed, because what they knew is what they were doing for her.
This is
they
the
thought
tradition.
it was the tradition was the best thing for her to see her get married and have somebody take care of her. Had they been educated and had they been made aware that there are more opportunities other than being married, I think they would have also decided to do the best thing.
Yeah, maybe,
so education is the key issue, and as parents, we need to educate and make our children more aware and let them know what's there are other avenues to take,
and whatever choices you make,
that is the most
exactly.
important thing.
You have to be open-minded.
There's a cultural clash in this, but before we get to that point, I want us to view a videotape about an African debutante in Nigeria, actually, and just let's talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
This is a coming out celebration in Africa. Is this demeaning to women?
I feel it is demeaning to women. Again, these were things that were done centuries ago, but in terms of modern society, it has changed. It has taken a different format. You can have a coming out party or a coming out for women, but it doesn't have to be in a derogative manner where women are exposed. For instance, you have here in the Western culture where you have Sweet 16 party, and they're nicely dressed, as well presented, and it's the same format. So to have women expose themselves, I think there has to be a way to present a person that this is the time they are mature, they are of age, and they're ready for marriage or whatever it is that they are trying to depict.
Well, the notion is that these women come out, they show off their beautiful bodies, and the purchasers can make their decision based on who looks more fertile and so on and so forth. But these women are not pushed into this. They elect to do this with their own families.
I think this kind of ceremonies comes in very many ways and various forms, and it differs from various places in Africa as such. As she said, in the course of time, we will see a lot of changes coming in to make it much more, maintaining the significance of it, but making it much more
dignified.
Modified. This is what I see will happen. There's nothing that we can do about it, in the sense that there are some very remote places that people do not reach, who want to cherish this.
I don't think this is strictly limited to Africa. I think that in other parts of the world, women, we are seen as commodities, that whoever is going to be with us have to inspect us. And even in this society, you go on Broadway and you look at the dancers, the men are dressed, the women are in something, a string bikini or whatever it is that they wear, and they show off their body, and that's how every society, and that's why I was asking the question, should we sit up as women and say, hey, if he can put on his pins, I'm going to dance and you watch, and I'm going to put on my pins and dance and come and watch me,
Oh, okay. But the essence that one might just draw up on this, it can be made much more better, in the sense that not just showing off the bodies, that one might just say, hey, then this is the most beautiful one that I want. As you said, that it's all over. In Western societies, people pay up to places to see women undress or to see men undress and a whole sort of other things. The way and manner in which the person is prepared and the message behind it, if it is institutionalized, then it becomes a problem. That is where my feeling, the way I would want to reason against this, if it is institutionalized, that let's bring them up and let me choose the one that I want for my future adopted wife, on which I can use. If it is institutionalized, whether informal or not, then one has a problem with it.
Well, women has always been preoccupied with being chosen and looking your best and all those things. And you are a columnist for a center newspaper, and I read an article. That's when I decided to give you a call and let's do this, where I see that women write to you about relationships, and men write about careers, about other things, but women are stuck in this relationship thing. Are we too preoccupied with relationship, and therefore we don't participate in other things. That's why we find ourselves this way. We've been exploited, because I believe you wrote a story, and I don't mean to go on, I will let you make your point. A woman who was dating a married man, and she eventually found her own, and the guy didn't have an easier time dealing with the situation and stuff like that. Why do we find ourselves,
I think it's a
what
matter
have you noticed?
Right, I think it's a matter of competition and how the person feels about herself. I mean, we all know that there are more women than men, so therefore we tend to compete with each other.
Is polygamy inevitable?
I mean, I personally would not have my husband marry another woman, okay? It depends, again, how you feel about it in terms of the relationship that you're in. But polygamy exists even in this culture. But in the African society, I mean, it's made more public. It's more acceptable in the sense that the woman, the first wife, is more aware that the husband is going to take a second or third wife.
But
Where over
We're
here,
running out of time. So,
I think that is, it comes in different aspects, though. In the book, Akosua was born into a polygamous home, right, with several children. But what I'm trying to point out is polygamy, as it was, might not be accepted now because society has been changing. If you marry 10 wives and have 50 children, and you don't have the resources to look
but I
after
think
them.
Gifty made an excellent point that statistics is against women. I mean, there are no two ways about it. There are more of us than there are of them.
Right.
Are we then saying that, okay, if I'm lucky and I have my own, that that's
I'm not willing to share.
Right, the rest of you, you can go to where, and this is my. I mean, is it fair that women in Akosia's parents' case, they have accepted as part of the culture? The women were living in harmony. There were no fighting and killing and whatever. They accepted it that I go Tuesday nights and that person go Wednesday nights.
But in Akosia's parents' generation, polygamy existed for various reasons because they were doing farming. You needed more manpower to go farming. But in today's society,
you marry and bring your wife and
then the children to.
But in today's society, you have the resources to look after all these children, and they become a problem.
Well, I think there are a lot of women in relationships, which are not ideal. They've seen other people's husbands and so on. But we run out of time, and I just want to bring one point out before we leave. There was a cultural clash in this book where Akosua met a white Peace Corps person who encouraged her, and eventually she made it to America. If it were, this person didn't sleep with her, even though she wanted to have had a relationship with her, do you think that if it was an African man, he would have taken advantage of that situation?
Absolutely.
Do you think so?
I think could anything have happened, though.
Yeah? Okay. Well, on that note, I would like to thank you very much for an interesting half an hour. Thank you very much, Gifty Aseidu, columnist at Center. Please read and write to her. And also, she's a social worker, certified social worker. And Kwasi Bosompem, author, Confession of a Neglected African Daughter. Read the book. It's an interesting book. I sat there, I read that book within the night or maybe a few hours, and I was sitting there and thinking, I said, what a sad life, because some of us don't know that. Again, thank you very much for watching. This is Yaa Okoampa-Ahoofe. Good night. See you next time.